This is a final render phase. I've united the appliances. I've united the other side. We've given them name. This is sink. This is appliance. This is vent. We have the frame, and we have the walls. Then I'll save the final master, and then we'll take a walk into our kitchens in there, and I can analyze what needs to be photos and analyze how what kind of imperfections are on these appliances and on the metal, so I can try to duplicate them in a procedural way, either using Substance Designer or just straight up Substance Painter and just paint them on, which probably is what I'm gonna end up doing, just paint them. We'll go from here. I'll take you inside. So let's go back to the Clucking Lucky container. From right here, I can already tell. I'm looking at the frame of this container and it just feels tough. And that's something that we're gonna achieve through PBR, through the material, procedural material, and mix with the ORM, which is the occlusion, roughness, metallic mixed together using the RGB channels. It's awesome. And right now off the top, I mean, it's opaque, but it just feels thick. So it has some kind of roughness. That's something I would, go back and forth with. Those holes, I couldn't model those holes. It'll break up, it'll create too many polygons. Polygon will increase and maybe tougher to upload on the phone or something. Maybe if you're using an older phone also. So that's a photo. The big deal here is, if you look at this right now, the big deal here is the shininess, how it's different levels of shininess. That's gonna be all roughness work. So this is a different shiny map right here. Same thing with the floor, totally opaque and dirty, but look at the imperfections. I wanna put the imperfections in handprints, but how much of it do you want? I guess that's something that will be determined, right? But you definitely gotta have them. So I created the knobs so we can occlude them and have shadows bouncing off, but I didn't create these. That's gonna be a photo. We can totally pull it off. The same thing with the inside of the oven. We'll use it as a photo, as an illusion, and maybe it might need an extra piece of geo on the top to create the glass with some transparency. That might be a big deal. Look at the difference in the shininess and the kind of metal here. This is like a shaved metal. That's gonna be fun. Substance Painter, grab some kind of brush and just brush that onto it. That's gonna be super cool. These creases here, that's all normal mapping. That wasn't modeled, that's a photo. When I take the picture, how will I put it off? I can't take these off, so I'm gonna have to figure out, maybe I can do it in 2 parts and patch them together in Photoshop and use it that way. That could be a technique. Now look at the level of detail on this metal. Now this is different. This is definitely normal mapping, like a rough thing going on here. It's not as shiny as some of the other metal. That's gonna be also another customized rough match. So even though the modeling was medium level, is hard surface, I specialize in organic modeling pretty much most of the time. I feel like the specular map, which is the ORMs, here are gonna be masterful. It's gonna be cool. This is what's gonna create all this good stuff happening here. For some reason, I lost sleep last night. Just thinking of these lights in here. Since I didn't model those lights out, but I would still want to see them, even though you don't see them from a distance, but if you walk in here, you might still see them. So I'm thinking emissions for sure. Creating a mask, emissions. So what I would do first is create the texture, have the photo on the model to be able to guide my normal map. Then from that normal map, create a mask to be able to emit the light, the emissions. And then that will bounce off the metal and all that. And I'm thinking that's the technique to use. Sometimes I can't help but to take my work home. So when I'm home, I kind of like pre-plan and I think about maybe obstacles I would face. And I try to think of them at home and think how I would iron them out. When I get here the next day, I try them. And it's really fun when I try them and they work. It sucks when they don't work. But most of the time they do work, thanks to experience. So one of the most important parts, the branding, the exterior. When I modeled it soup to nuts, because I wanted to make sure that we get this kind of lighting in here, like shadow, light, But I also was trying to set myself up for maybe future animations. We were thinking blinders, just, maybe animate blinders to switch from brand to brand, like we see all these around here. We can have all this cool artwork just on one piece of geo and go through it. But that's on the that's on the wish list. So I took photos, and my workflow was mixing photos with substance, painter textures inside of Photoshop, and decision making was a big deal here, deciding whether or not to model or use photos, and from a distance they work. As you can tell inside the grill, we have these cool lights in here. This is all Photoshop with some emission. This right here is Photoshop, but I mean, can you imagine modeling each one of these in the poly count increase? It's pretty crazy. So we pulled it off with just photos and some cool lighting and substance textures. So as you can see from a distance, they work. Some of these photos are actually working around the buttons and some of the branding. Let's take a look at it in a ray trace render. So there you go. Here's one of your final renderings inside a blender. Let's take a look at it from up front. Right now it's calculating lights. So we have some lights set up here. We have a total of like 5 lights. The sixth one would be here facing in front of the container, and then we have an IBL, an image-based light. This is an HDR, which mixed with lights, it's used for reflection and for sunlight. So as you can see with these lights inside a blender, we're getting some really good reflection and good shadowing. From start to end, my favorite part of this whole process was the 3D modeling. You know, using the photogrammetry and having the real container out there, being able to walk out there and take a look and take photos was a huge advantage. My honest opinion, I would say, is about, it won't be a 1-for-1, but it's a good 95%.